And now we have our first access to what I kind of like to call the base of this game, but we can't do much here at this point. We can press X to access the menu though, and from here we can check equipment, which we don't really have much we can do with. Status, and view the status of all of our party members. I'm going to go over everyone's full details later on. But Zen and Rei, it's important to know, fight as a single unit in battle. I always thought that was a cool concept for an RPG, having two characters who both take up the same party slot and fight together. And then we have Fuka on support. Support characters work very differently to how they do in the main Persona games, and in my opinion, they're actually a lot better, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. The main thing to do here, though, is... Actually, I can just check my items. We don't have anything at all. Seems we lost everything. Also, you might notice that all of our levels are down to pretty low. Yeah, for some reason, that big warp that happened with the Velvet Room took away all of our experience from Persona 3. While we're here, we should go ahead and save. Don't mind the 2 practice files that I have. Because you want to save before going into a dungeon. This is one of those games that if you get a party wipe, you get reset back to the last time you saved. Make sure you save every time you return to base. So that's what I'll be doing right now. And with that done, it's time to head out into the labyrinth. Preparations are all out of the way, so now it's time to Alice. We only have one option here, so let's start from the entrance. Welcome to the labyrinth.
What is this place?
Careful! I do sense shadows in there.
The world of a children's book, huh? Seems like the perfect place to run into something.
What children's books did you read growing up?
Rei, there's no need to be scared.
And so, we're being told how to open the menu, even though we already know that from earlier. And we're being given a rundown on the controls. Something to note here, the circle pad does not control movement or menus at all in this game. That's entirely on the D-pad. Also, you can use L and R to strafe in dungeons. I'll explain that once we start moving. So, here we are. We can use the D-pad to look around like this. We can also hold down the B button and use the circle pad to look around. This place looks really cool in 3D, by the way, though you can't see that in the video. Or, if you turn to the side and press L and R, we can sidestep. Sidestepping is going to be kind of useful for getting around later. For now, we don't really have much to do with the bottom screen. We'll be getting a map there later. Also, the kanji up there, that says You in the Mysterious Kingdom, which is based on the Japanese title of Alice in Wonderland, Alice in the Mysterious Kingdom. So the translation of this was pretty much a direct one.
Careful.
Hey, you know,
Oh.
Yeah, we should definitely use this, especially since we're on hard mode. It's in fact entirely possible to die in the tutorial on hard, so I hope that doesn't end up happening. So that area was pretty straightforward. Let's just walk through here. It doesn't really matter whether you step on every tile at this point, but I'm kind of doing it out of habit. And it's battle time! Also, this is a pretty awesome battle theme. We'll be hearing this a lot over the course of the game. So, just like in the mainline Persona series, hitting the weaknesses of enemies is very important. Unfortunately, we don't have a direct scanning ability in this one. This works more like Persona 4, where you only find out the enemy's weaknesses through trial and error. But the way that hitting a weakness works is very different to the mainline Persona games. Hitting an enemy with an element they're weak to, or with a critical hit from a physical attack, will put the attacker into boosted state. Boost is very similar to Smirk status from Shin Megami Tensei 4. Boost causes you to act first next turn, and all of your skill costs become free. The downside though is if you get hits, you lose your boost status. This gives slow characters an advantage as it makes them more likely to keep boost status.
3 shadows. Some of them are unidentified. Prepare to be executed.
So, get used to this, characters will actually comment a lot, and there's a lot of unique voice clips, some of which will only play during certain combinations of party members. It's actually a really nice touch, so by pressing the L button, we can check the stats of these guys. We don't really know anything about them, but these are Lying Hablares, not a shadow to be fought in Persona 3. So, the battle system of this game is, it kind of meshes together Etrian Odyssey and Persona mechanics. So, there's actually quite a lot to go over, and I won't explain it all here. But there is still the rush command from the main Persona games if you press the X button, that just causes your characters to just spam standard attacks. Good if you're facing weak enemies, or if the enemies have very low HP and you just want the battle to be over quickly. So our options here are attack, which is, in fact, you can press the right button on the D-pad in order to get a description. Skills, leader skill. Now, we can't actually do much with this yet. We don't have enough energy for healing Breeze. I'll talk more about how leader skills work later. Use items. Defend. This is new if you played Persona 3, but not if you played Persona 4. While you're defending, you are immune to status ailments in this game, so bear that in mind. I forget whether defending prevents you from taking weakness damage or not, like it did in P4. Move is also new. So this game actually uses a formation system similar to a lot of traditional RPGs, like old school Final Fantasy. Characters in the back row are less likely to be targeted by enemies and take slightly less damage. However, their own melee attacks do less damage to the enemy, and if they're using just straight up melee weapons like swords, they will not be able to target enemies in the back row. But projectile weapons like Zen's crossbows can target enemies anywhere, even from the back row. Characters in the front row are more likely to be targeted, take more damage, and their melee weapons can hit enemies wherever they are, even in the back row. You can freely change the formation at any time during battle, and it actually doesn't cost turns to do so, so if you have someone in the front row who's weak, you can retreat them to the rear lines. Anyway, yeah, I've explained quite a bit here, so let's go. The Lying Hablares, I believe they are weak to, well, as Spook would say, it has multiple weaknesses. They're weak to electricity, fire, and light, but they're also weak to basic strike attacks, which Shinjiro and Akihiko both use. So let's have you use Agi. Let's just have you use a basic attack, and Shinjiro will also use a basic attack. Zen will use his only ability here as Bane Slice, which is a light slash attack, I'll explain why I'm using this terminology later, that has a medium chance of Curse. I'll explain how Curse status works once we first see it. And Mitsuru, well, I guess you can go ahead and try Bufu. So, also, yeah, that's pretty cool. Another difference with this game's battle system compared to the main Persona games is that you choose actions for characters at the start of the turn, and then the characters and enemies act in order of speed. You'll notice there that Gary Stu got hit and thus lost boost status.
It's all mine.
Something to also note here is that if a character has their cut-in, it doesn't guarantee that they hit a weakness or got a critical. In the main Persona games, that was reserved for that, but here, characters will just kind of get cut-ins randomly. So I've already shown that before.
Zen, we're on a roll.
Yes. Let's try to keep it going.
I'll try not to talk over party members during battle. So anyway, we can see that they use Bufu, and they're weak to strike attacks and fire. You want to be careful of your SP at this point in the game, though. SP is the blue meter below your HP. You use that for magical skills. Physical skills, however, are fueled by HP. However, Akihiko doesn't have any physical skills. I'll show that off with Shinjiro here. So Shinjiro has Teardrop, which is actually more useful when you're boosted than when not. This only lasts for one turn, so you want to get this effect off at the beginning of a turn. However, because Akihiko is faster than Shinjiro, if I go for a combo of, oh, I'll drop his defense with this and then have Akihiko hit it, that won't work because Akihiko will hit the enemy first. When two characters are boosted, they'll go in order of speed. So I think it's actually better for me to just standard attack you, Zeo that one, Teardrop you, and then just have everyone just go stacks on this guy.
Here goes. I'll induce it.
Yep, these things are weak to electricity.
Faster.
Hitting an enemy's weakness will occasionally knock them down, but not always like in the original game. An enemy that's knocked down can't do anything for the remainder of the turn, and they're unable to dodge as well.
Damn.
And that's an enemy eliminated thanks to Shinjiro's defense drop.
One enemy left.
So who should I crush next?
Well, this guy obviously, because there's only one option for you.
Alright, done. Don't get too worked up. The next fight's not far off.
And of course, every battle will give you experience. So, I hope you kind of understand the basics of combat from that. We got some tongue skin. That's pleasant. Every enemy has their own unique list of drops. These drops will be useful for us later on. But for now, let's just hold on to them. Here, there's not really that much we can do. We can just walk around this pool there, and open up this door. Also, from the menu, yes, damage will carry over to later battles, and there's not much of a way to recover SP at this point in the game. That's why I said to just be a bit careful with it. I'm going to go ahead and just patch up Shinjiro because he got hit. Because he took quite a bit of damage last time. Shinjiro is kind of one of the party tanks, but as I was saying, physical attacks are fueled by your HP in this game, so you'll need to be healing your physical attackers frequently.
I searched ahead, and I think there's still a long ways to go.
That much, huh? Shouldn't we go back for now?
Yeah, we should keep our strength up as much as we can before moving on.
But... No, you're right. Let's head back for the time being.
So as this is just a tutorial, we're not allowed to go any further.
Leader.
So I kind of wasted that healing item, but we still can get into random encounters on our way back to the entrance, I think. Oh, and I already explained this. However, holding down the B button while you're moving lets you run. This just dramatically increases the speed at which you traverse the labyrinth, and you can also run while strafing. Yep, another battle.
3 shadows. Some of them are unidentified. I'm jealous. Imagine how much it can eat.
Yeah, I guess she thinks this thing's mouth to eat a lot. Anyway, we now have the Cowardly Maya, a much more familiar enemy from Persona 3. This thing is weak to fire, ice, elect, wind, and dark, so weak to pretty much everything magical. We're gonna be leaving soon, so I'm fine with spamming a lot of SP. Now, I want to focus most of my attacks on the Cowardly Maya, because once it's gone, the other 2 enemies will be forced to move to the front line, and thus they'll take more damage from our attacks. You get used to the row system eventually. Now, these Hablares are quite fast. And Akihiko got his weakness hit, which lets me explain something. Enemies do not have boost, thankfully. So, getting hit by your weaknesses is not nearly as bad as it is in the mainline Persona games. It can still knock you down though, but it won't give the enemy additional attacks against you. Okay, we got 4 characters boosted there. All-out attacks still exist in this game, and they work pretty similarly to how they do in the main Persona games. You hit a lot of weaknesses in a turn, and you get access to the all-out attack. In this case, it's kind of a random chance, but it's extremely likely if you have 4 or 5 characters boosted. You can sometimes get it if you have 3 characters boosted, but it's not as likely. You're nearly guaranteed to get the all-out attack if you have 4 or 5 boosts. So all-out attack deals physical or mighty damage to all enemies on the field. And
Akihiko, fall back and heal.
Yeah, I know. Don't look so worried.
yep, characters who know each other will actually have unique interactions when they're hurt or things like that. It's a really nice touch. But anyway, you might have noticed that meter at the side go up to 1. This is leader skills, a new feature to this game. Leader skills let you command your navigator to use a specific ability of their persona. Fuka has Healing Breeze, which gives you HP regeneration at the end of every turn for 3 turns. It doesn't come into effect immediately though, so it's not great if you're heavily wounded. It's better to use this at the start of a battle. This costs 1 point of your support meter. But anyway, this thing's probably going to go down quite easily. So let's just spam attacks on it. No need to use a skill from Mitsuru there. I said before that I much prefer the way support characters work in this game to the mainline Persona games. In the main Persona series, you'd often...
Right,
they'd often have support abilities, but you could never directly control when they use them. They're often random. Here, you've got a direct meter that you spend on support skills.
I'm sorry, but I lack the energy to do much more.
And your character will comment in the labyrinth if they have low SP or HP. Just a general player nudge there.
This way?
Now with that, we can safely leave.
Welcome back, everyone. I searched ahead and picked up on a unique reading further into the labyrinth. I think it might be a giant shadow.
So obviously, each of these dungeons has a boss.
A giant shadow. It's probably a strong one, too.
That's what I'm talking about.
And once again, our Hugo's been flanderized into a giant Blood Knight.
I had a feeling that would be the case. If so, then we must be fully prepared.
Prepared? In what way?
Well, for a start, weapons to attack with, armor to protect ourselves, items that could be useful on our search,
In other words, standard RPG fare, but we don't really have a shop here.
and above all else, someplace where we can recover. Not that we've seen any of those things around here.
If we cannot update our equipment, I predict that we will face heavy odds.
If only we could hit up the Polonia Mall.
For those who don't know, that was where you bought stuff back in Persona 3.
Would this be insufficient? It's a projectile device that uses nearby objects. Its effect changes depending on what it fires.
Otherwise known as a crossbow.
Why don't you all use one too?
It's a nice offer, but we all have our own weapons we like.
Yep, no one else here is proficient in crossbows.
If that's all we get, fine. But we'll be much better in a fight if we can use the stuff we know.
I see. Different weapons for each of you.
I think there might be some. There's a place I know.
I'm a little creeped out you know a place nearby where we can get weapons in a school. But we'll take anything at this point.
It has tons of stuff. Let's all go there together, and we can swing by the donut shop on our way.
You probably just wanted to go to the donut shop, didn't you?
Handcrafted workshop.
Small toys, including a sword impaled in a bust over there, and some Danganronpa blood on it.
Was it always like this?
Zen, strawberries! They're like berries full of straw! Is that the true origin of the word strawberry?
Of course not. That's way too nasty sounding to be true.
Look, there are swords here. You could use these to... Huh? These are toy swords. Are they no good?
Well, if we're the Persona 5 party, we could make use of them, but...
Oh, it's all right. We siblings will lend you our assistance.
Yes, Theo will be happy to do so.
Elizabeth, very well then. Well then, everyone, please allow me to create equipment and expendables for you here.
So Theodore's going to be running the shop for us. Though there's one more thing that I want to mention now that we'll be seeing a lot of Theodore. Theodore was originally voiced by Travis Willingham in Persona 3 Portable. Here, he's voiced by Bryce Papenbrook. Now don't get me wrong, Bryce Papenbrook is a good voice actor, but this is such a weird change. Why replace Travis Willingham with Bryce Papenbrook? They sound completely different. Yeah, that's the one voice change in this game that I don't really think has much logic behind it.
I am still in the midst of learning the process, but I do have some knowledge of it. You will come across different materials when you defeat shadows in the labyrinth. Please bring them to me so that I may turn them into weapons, armor, and expendables.
This is what those drops we were getting from enemies are for. This system is very similar to the way that it works in Persona 4 if you played that game.
Materials.
It would be faster to show rather than tell. Here goes. And it's done! What do you think? As you have just witnessed, I will create equipment and expendables for you.
How exactly he got those things out of a piece of a shadow, I'll never know.
We will need payment for them.
Oh.
Will?
That is how a contract works.
And of course, the whole no hero discount RPG trope. Yeah, the fact we're fighting for our lives and everyone is trapped here, they still gonna demand our money.
It's a means of compensation so that you don't slack off. Put simply, A give-and-take system is necessary.
I mean, it's especially weird considering these two don't have any need for real-world money.
I see. Well then, though it wounds me to do so, I will charge a suitable price for said items. I will do my utmost to be of assistance to you, so I hope we get along well.
I should mention though, money is extremely important in this game. You want to make sure that you keep your money well in check.
One moment. What you hold there is a fascinating piece of a shadow. It's very rare. I've never seen a piece shaped like this.
What, the tongue piece? I got two of them.
It was just lent.
Oh, right.
Why do you ask? I don't feel as if I'm injured anywhere.
There is one other thing. Carrying all your things around would be burdensome. So why not leave what you don't need here?
So, here's a feature of this game a lot of people might find annoying. You're limited to 60 inventory items. That includes random drops from enemies, equipment that is not currently equipped to any character, skill card, which I'll get to later, and consumable items. So, inventory management can get pretty tight in this game, but I like to use it as an indicator for when you should be returning back to base. When your inventory is starting to fill up from item drops from enemies, that's about when I think you should be ending an expedition and going back.
If you hand it over to Theo, it'll be stored somewhere, such as an unused shelf.
Impressive. Most thoughtful of you, Elizabeth.
But she's still forcing her bro to do all the work.
Get used to that, unfortunately. Probably the one thing I don't like about Elizabeth is that she's pretty mean to Theodore in this game.
Well, Theo, you are now the master of this establishment. Do your duty well and try not to embarrass yourself. Here, a present for you. It is a uniform that I prepared for just such an occasion.
Remember I said that she could be pretty mean to Theodore? Well...
Elizabeth, thank you. I will do my best to not disgrace our master in your name, and...
yeah.
Surely you didn't mean... this is my present?
Reminds me of something that happened in Chuck Conroy's Animal Crossing LP, actually.
Why not try it on? Why not try it on?
Very well. Is this the correct way to wear it?
Yikes. Now that I see it on you.
What is it?
It's a strawberry! Bears like to sip from them with straws.
So, the name has a double meaning. I think Ray-san is giving Aiga-san some funny ideas.
Moving along now. You asked for a place to recuperate, yes? That can easily be arranged. I have something in mind. If you'll all follow me...
Elizabeth, are you planning to finish that sentence from before?
I mean, I can't actually blame him for talking about that. I had that problem myself.
It's an ordinary nurse's office.
Well, this is a school, so you'd expect it would have something like this.
This is slightly disappointing.
With more time, I could have made some adjustments for comfort. But we'll have to make do.
Nothing's disappointing with Elizabeth around.
I will set things up so that your stamina can be healed here, whenever you return from the labyrinth. Please remember to come here.
So, unlike in Tartarus, we're not fully healed by going back to base. And we're about to see why this is gonna get very annoying.
Your praise is heartwarming. It is our duty to aid our guest. Though we may be busy or the work tiresome, we will carry it out. That is why I insist on asking for payment for my services.
Yep, healing is not free in Persona Q.
As I mentioned, this world mandates a give-and-take system. I cannot go against such laws either. In any case, that should help you prepare yourselves for battle. You have a tough time fighting shadows? I recommend that you reconsider your equipment. Deciding who will fight in battle is also important. Don't forget to set a good formation. Well then, I bid you good luck on your way.
So at this point, a lot of stuff opens up to us. But yes, healing is not free.
Since she brought it up, why don't we reconsider our formation? Now that we're all going to pitch in, I think we need to decide on who will stand and fight in battle. There's something you have to keep in mind when setting your formation. There's a front line and a back line. The ones in back will take less damage from enemy attacks.
I already explained that during the battle tutorial.
But if you put close-range fighters in back, their attacks will be weak, if they can reach at all.
This is actually kind of weird for me because in back is not grammatical in Australian English, only in American English. But anyway.
Like, I'm good at fighting close up, so I won't be able to hit some enemies from the back line.
Yukari-san, Ken-san, Zen-san, and I are capable of attacking from the rear without difficulty.
Yukari and Zen use ranged attacks, as does Aigis, and Ken uses a spear which has long reach.
You should take the weapons we use into consideration when deciding on an ideal formation.
Mitsuru uses a straight-up physical weapon, but she's much better in the back line, I find.
Whether we concentrate on offense, fortify our defenses, or take a balanced approach is all up to you.
What that means is we finally have full control over our party members, unlike Persona 3. Yeah.
Our positions aren't set in stone, of course. Try moving people around depending on the situation.
I already talked about that. You can freely change formation during battle. So here we are at the base, and we're going to be instructed to change our party right now. And because of that, I'm actually going to have to go over everyone's abilities. So let's start with our protagonist himself. This guy's actually forced into our party for this route, so there's no real, there's no point in considering, how he compares to other party members, because we'll always be using him. But anyway, the Persona 3 protagonist could use all personas back in his original game. In this game, though, he's stuck with Orpheus, and that's kind of a bad thing, because it means that he's both weak to electricity and dark. Dark is an instant death element, so yeah, he's stuck with an instant death weakness, and instant death attacks are heavily buffed compared to the mainline Persona games in this game. So an instant death weakness is even worse than it would be normally. To compensate for that though, Orpheus has extremely high stats all round. So the protagonist of the Persona 3 party is going to see a lot of use and will end up becoming extremely overpowered throughout the course of the game. Especially since being forced into our party at all times, he'll be reaping experience constantly. Now he has very good luck overall in addition to magic, but all his stats are great. This is one of the few JRPGs in existence where luck is probably the best stat in the game, surprisingly enough. Luck affects your success rate with status ailments and instant death attacks. And, well, instant death and status are both extremely broken in this game if you have high luck. The Persona 3 protagonist mainly learns fire-type skills, because that's Orpheus' specialty, and we're going to be learning Gurentor soon, which is a fire-type physical attack. Yes, this game has elemental physical skills, which really helps your physical users, and that's kind of a major problem with Persona Q. There's a TV trope called Linear Warriors Quadratic Wizards that basically means that magic users end up becoming game-breakingly overpowered later in the game but start out weak, and physical users just stay about the same. Persona Q utterly inverts that trope. Magic users are okay early on. Later in the game though, magic is kind of weak. What they did in this game was give magic ridiculously high SP cost to compensate for boost. They went way too far though, and late game magic is so expensive and not really all that worth it. Whereas physical attackers start out pretty much on par with magic users. Later in the game though, physical attackers become game-breakingly overpowered. So the protagonist being decent with both physical skills and magic as well as status ailments, that makes them pretty useful. You might also notice that we only have room for 4 skills. Most party members in this game do not learn very many skills naturally from their persona. But you might notice those extra slots for skill cards. We'll go into that later, but thanks to this and one other mechanic, characters are a lot more customizable in Q than they are in the mainline Persona games. So, that's the protagonist out of the way. Next up we have Yukari Takeba. Yukari is our main healer of the party. She uses healing skills and wind-type magic. Her stats, she has amazing magic and very middle-of-the-road everything else, and she's weak to electricity. Yukari in this game is fairly useful early on, but once we start getting access to healing on other party members, she falls off quite a bit. Her magical offense also falls off a ton later in the game because magic just in general sucks in late game in Persona Q, but Yukari is always decent as a healer, and as far as the dedicated healers of the party go, we'll be getting another dedicated healer later on, but I find Yukari the far better of the two because Yukari learns multi-targeting healing spells, whereas the other one doesn't. Next up, we have my favourite character, Junpei Iori. Junpei is a physical attacker, which is great in this game because physical skills are amazing. He starts out with a physical fire type move, which is cool. He also learns defense buffs. Junpei's stats mostly lean towards strength and endurance, and he has relatively balanced stats elsewhere. Junpei is pretty standard as far as physical attackers go, which means he's kind of average early on but ends up amazing. But one thing that I want to point out with Junpei is that in this game, every party member, upon hitting level 55 and completing a certain side quest, has access to an ultimate skill, as I like to call them. I won't spoil exactly what the ultimate skills are, I'll leave that for later, but I will say, Junpei's ultimate skill is absolutely amazing, which makes him a fantastic party member later in the game. Because I forgot to cover them, the protagonist's ultimate skill is bar none one of the best skills in the game, possibly the best skill in the game, so it's great that they're forced into the party. Yukari's ultimate skill is meh. It's not amazing, but it's not bad either. So after Junpei, we have Akihiko Sanada. He may have been horribly derailed in this game, personality-wise, but Akihiko is a very strong party member in battle. Now, his stats here might look similar to how they are in Persona 3, a jack of all trades without particularly excelling in anything. Don't let that fool you though. In Persona Q, Akihiko is a straight-up physical monster, with some of the highest strength and agility in the game, meaning that he hits hard and fast. His skill set has been nerfed a little bit since Persona 3 though. He's not nearly as versatile as he used to be. He still learns electric attacks and physical skills, but he only learns one debuff now rather than all the debuffs. So that's not as key of a feature of Akihiko in battle. He's still very useful though, and he's one of the strongest party members in the game later on. His ultimate skill is pretty good, not the best, but above average I'd say. Then we have Mitsuru. Mitsuru is our second magic user, and she's kinda similar to Yukari, except a little bit more offensively inclined. She learns attack buff skills and ice spells, and her stats lean more towards the offensive stance than Yukari. She's a little bit more fragile, but she's a little bit faster and has a bit higher luck. She still has great magic though. Overall, I find Mitsuru to be a bit weak in this game. She does learn a very good status ailment skill naturally, but there are other better uses of that status ailment skill that I find. She suffers overall from magic being not that great. Overall, I'd rather use Yukari than her simply because Yukari has healing utility. Mitsuru's all about magical offense, and magical offense is just not good in Persona Q. Oh, and Mitsuru's ultimate skill is terrible. It's one of the two worst in the entire game. Next we have Aigis. Aigis specializes in physical attacks, and she's the only party member to be resistant to a physical element, in this case pierce attacks. Her stats lean towards physical tanking, having very high strength and magic and middle-of-the-road stats elsewhere. Now, in this game, Aigis is a much better tank than she is in Persona 3, because she learns skills that let her take attacks in place of allies. But that is not Aigis' main role. Aigis' main role is to be an absolute physical monstrosity in combat, because she has access to a unique ability, Orgia Mode. This is in Persona 3, but it's a lot better in this one due to your ability to control Aigis' actions manually. Orgia Mode drastically increases Aigis' stats for 3 turns, and at the end of those 3 turns, she'll overheat and be unusable for a few turns and have heavily reduced defense. So you want to be careful with that, but used right, the enemy will never get to capitalize on the overheat status because they'll be brutally overkilled by then. Orgia Mode is incredibly broken when combined with some other physical skills in this game, so you'll be seeing that later. Aigis' ultimate skill it helps her tanking ability, but it's fairly average in my opinion. Next we have Ken. Ken has been drastically improved since Persona 3. He still specializes in electric attacks and instant death light attacks, but in Persona Q, instant death light attacks are amazing. And they're even more amazing when you take into account that Ken has one of the highest luck stats in the game. Like I said, luck increases the chance of instant death skills succeeding in Persona Q. So Ken is an incredibly useful party member in this game. Don't discount him. Many people thought he was not that useful in Persona 3. They'll turn around on that in this game. He's very, very good. Ken's ultimate skill is... In fact, I can't even remember what his ultimate skill is. That probably tells you that it's not that great. Next up, we have the second instant death specialist, Koromaru. Koromaru is the only character to naturally start with immunities. In this case, he's immune to instant kill dark attacks, but he's weak to instant kill light attacks. Koromaru specialized in Mudor, which is darkness-based instant death attacks, which of course are very useful in this game. Koromaru is also extremely fast, however his stats are not that great apart from his agility, which is kind of sad. And his luck is a lot lower than Ken, so he doesn't succeed with instant death as often as Ken does. So overall, Koromaru is decent. He suffers from a lot of competition from another instant death specialist we'll be recruiting later on though, unfortunately. Koromaru's ultimate skill is actually pretty good and synergizes very well with his high agility, but I'll get to that later. Next we have Shinjiro. Shinjiro is our straight up physical brawler. He's very slow but has very high strength and endurance, and pretty good HP too. Shinjiro is all about hitting things, basically, but his magic is not terrible for a physical brawler, so bear that in mind. Shinjiro mainly learns this type of skill, Teardrop, which lower the enemy's defense for one turn. The problem with this is that it's a lot better on faster characters. Unless Shinjiro is in boost status, he's going to use this at the end of a turn, and then their defense debuff will just wear off immediately, so it's not really a great ability for him. He needs to critical to make good use of this. Shinjiro's ultimate skill is not exactly the best, but it's not that bad either. So regarding Shinjiro, the main problem I have with him is he doesn't have a lot that differentiates him from other physical party members. He's decent like all physical attackers in this game, but there are just some other characters like, for example, Aigis. He does not have Aigis' Orgia mode or Junpei's ultimate skill. The main asset that Shinjiro has over others is he later on learns an ability that lets him heal when he's at critical HP, but that's pretty much all he has going for him, sadly. He's still decent, like I said, but there are other better physical users. And now the new characters to this game, Zen and Rei. Zen and Rei do not have a persona, and because of that they work very differently to the rest of the party, but I'll get to how that affects things later on. Zen and Rei fight as a single unit in battle, and they share abilities. Zen's skills lean towards offense. Bane Slice has a chance to inflict Curse. Cursed enemies take damage equal to half the damage they deal whenever they deal damage. And he later on learns some elemental skills. He'll eventually learn some buff skills that affect entire rows at once, and these are very, very useful throughout the game. Rei, on the other hand, we can switch to by pressing L and R on this screen. Rei mostly learns healing skills. Unfortunately, she hasn't learned recovery yet, but this one's going to be our very useful healing skill for a long time. The thing about Zen and Rei is they're actually a hybrid offensive support healing party member. They're actually quite versatile. And they're even more versatile thanks to this. This is actually really helpful early on because we don't have much access to SP restoration. For every few steps they take, they recover SP, so they have effectively infinite SP at this point in the game. It does recover very slowly though, so you don't want to blow it all at once. But if you're sparing with SP usage and just use a little bit every battle, they'll get it back pretty quickly, making them very effective party members. Also, their stats, to compensate for them not having personas, are higher than average in every single area. But the weakness of them not having personas will become apparent later on. Let's just say that it makes them less versatile than the other party members. So, who's going to go in the party now? Well, we already used these three, so let's go with Yukari in the back row, Aigis, I guess we can go with Junpei. And here's the thing, as much as I really like Ken, one of Ken's main weaknesses early on is that he has very low SP, and he really only gets one chance to use Hama per battle at this point. We'll get something to mitigate that soon, but for now, Ken might want to stay out of battles all that much, so I think I'm actually going to go ahead and bring Koromaru. I will be trying to use every party member as much as possible, by the way. So you'll notice that these three are fully rested and recovered. Gary Stu is not though. Also, we have this option. We can actually choose, for example, we can do some preset parties if you want. If you have a combination of party members you can register them as a party and have access to that whenever you want, which is pretty cool. I'll be trying to use every party member whenever I can, because even though some of them are weaker than others, I like to level up everyone evenly, and there's a lot of really cool dialogue in battle. It's one of the things that I love about this game. There's so much personality to the characters' battle voice clips. But anyway, we now have access to the school nurse's office and the handcrafted workshop. First thing I'll do is go to the workshop.
Welcome.
Hi there, Theodore. Here we can sell materials and use them to craft new items. So let's sell, thankfully we have an option that lets us sell everything.
Please
We don't really
wait
get
a
much
moment
money
as I
out of
see
this.
Whew. What do you think?
And that's giving us access to some new items. So the way this works is that every item requires certain items in order to make, but they're not required for every instance of that item. So for example, once we've obtained one Dormouse page, we can buy as much revival beads as we want. So the items that are needed are just needed to unlock the item for sale. We don't know how to get Dormouse pages, Turtle pages, etc. though, so all of these are inaccessible to us at this point. But we can buy Goho M and Medicine. I would highly recommend you have several Goho M's in your inventory at all times, and I'll talk about that once we actually get into the dungeon. I'll buy 3 of those for now, because I want to save some money for healing. We can also buy weapons. At this point, though, I don't feel like that's really all that necessary. I kind of prefer to focus more on skills and personas than on weapons. However, buying armor is always useful, especially on hard mode, where you take a lot more damage than usual. So you could buy a combat dress for Yukari. That'll increase her defense pretty considerably. Also something to note, Koromaru uses different armor to everyone else, being a dog obviously, and Aigis, if we check her, being a robot, she has different armor to everyone else. Something to mention is they've actually changed something about Aigis' weaponry in this game. It's now considered strike attacks instead of pierce, and I guess now I can go over why I'm referring to that in that way, so let's just go ahead and leave the workshop. So, in Persona 3, physical attacks were of 3 different elements, slash, strike, and pierce. In this game, they're referred to as stab, cut, and bash. I think that's an Etrian Odyssey thing, but I prefer to use the Persona 3 terminology, so I'll be doing that for most of the game. Anyway, let's head on into the, almost said Velvet Room.
Welcome.
Elizabeth may be here, but this is not the Velvet Room. We can just ask her about how healing works. We have more to do with the nurse's office later, but for now, all we can do is heal.
Will this be
Unfortunately,
alright?
healing in this game costs money, and I think this is also an Etrian Odyssey thing. So, how much it costs to heal, and this will fully heal your party, all status, all HP, all SP, everything. It costs 100 yen times the protagonist's level, so the price of healing will go up the more you go through the game. But later on in the game, it's much easier to get large amounts of money, so healing's only really an issue early on. I'd recommend you don't splurge too much on items early on in the game, because you will need the money for healing. But there's also a ton of party members in this game, so if your protagonist is not that badly damaged, but the rest of your party is, it's better to switch over to different party members than to heal. Well, or to pay for healing at the nurse's office. So that's what that does, and now that we've explained all of that, we can go ahead and save.